It's a real pleasure to be here and to be speaking with you. I've actually known Julia for a couple of years, and I take my hat off to you for this incredible panel, which I feel very privileged to be part of, and this conference today. Acumen Fund is an organization that's existed for about 11 years, formed by our founder, Jacqueline Novogratz, really with the idea to see if we could be a social venture capital fund to invest in companies that are sustainably providing goods and services to the poor in the developing world. Now, I'm fully aware that comes packaged with a lot of taxonomy and a lot of buzzwords as well. So what I hope to do in just this 5 minutes, and perhaps then in the Q&A, is to really break that down into what it is that we do and how we go about doing it. Just to give you a sense of our mission, we're ambitious. We're really looking to create a world beyond poverty and built around 3 major pillars around social enterprises, emerging leaders, and breakthrough ideas. And again, I'll delve into that a little bit more. And what really spawned Jacqueline to initiate Acumen Fund was the sense around a typically dichotomous relationship where we saw traditional VC and investing firms looking to maximize their financial return without necessarily due consideration on this x-axis of social impact. And also seeing philanthropy that was really, by construction, not looking for a financial return and looking to maximize social impact. Yet in reality, what we saw was that philanthropy really wasn't using that opportunity to take risk when it came to the fact that they didn't require this financial return and weren't fulfilling their mission to maximize social impact. But equally, when it came to investing, there was a clear sense, and we're seeing it around the world, that there is a market failure when it comes to the provision of goods and services to the poor on a risk-adjusted return basis, on an efficient market asset allocation basis, where we see companies that are typically, especially at the earlier stages, looking to provide critical goods and services. Actually, that high risk, when the upside can be more social impact than financial impact, may not mean that traditional venture capital will be allocated to that. So really, this phrase of patient capital looks to blend those two to, as Edge correctly outlined, where we raise philanthropy and invest that money in debt and equity in traditional investing forms, providing the capital and also the post-investment management support to companies that are delivering these goods and services. And actually, Julia's slide on innovation really ties very excitingly to a report, unfortunately just cut off at the bottom here, released by Monitor Group earlier this week, in fact. And you know, innovation, forgive me if some of you were at the Skull Forum and heard Judith Rodin from Rockefeller Foundation recount this, but it's a word that's so important, yet often, of course, a word that gets used too much. And when it comes to, I think what she said was that in 2011, innovation was the second most used word on LinkedIn, apparently second only to extensive experience. And so what I think is important today and on this panel, and I hope that you will challenge us, as to what do we really see about innovation, that we see about innovation. And for us, where we see the innovation is that provision of attacking market failure and public good provision failure by these social entrepreneurs that are coming up with business models to get the unit economics so that you're no longer treating the poor as passive recipients of aid, but actually as customers, and thereby changing the dynamic rather than them seeking charity or us offering out charity to providing them choice and quality services. And really linked to Julia's demonstration of the 3Ds, let me make sure I get them right, discovery, development, and delivery. Actually, I think we can see an analogy here around blueprint, and perhaps these two combined as the middle one, and here we have delivery. And what Monitor identified by analyzing our investment book over the last 11 years is that actually, in the middle here, they have what they call a pioneer gap. And critically, and often this is an unsexy thing to talk about, is that philanthropy does play an important role in filling this gap. And it's great that I see actually on the printed agenda that the topic today, the panel today is called Grants and Investments, because actually initially when it was called Grants versus Investment, I thought maybe didn't do justice to the fact that this is a little bit more complex. And we actually realized that when it comes to this, there may be a role for that philanthropy high-risk capital to support our then investment of debt, equity, working capital facilities, loan guarantees, and so on, to really take companies past the blueprint, business plan, winning, friends and family stage, through this validation and preparing to actually get to that point where we can see growth capital being attracted, and thrilling to have such a distinguished audience here who can actually talk us through more what we need to get and how we need to get more companies across to get there. An Acumen fund, we've been doing this, as I mentioned, for over 10 years, 11 years now, in 4 regions, India, Pakistan, East Africa, and most recently launched an office in Accra for Nigeria and Ghana, with our largest portfolio in health, and we do invest in 5 others as well, which we've been investing in since 2001, over $30 million. In the interest of time, I won't go into too much more detail on the examples, but I look forward to the Q&A. But I just wanted to touch on one example to maybe be a little bit more illustrative, to give you that more richness in terms of how it works in what we do. We invested a few years ago in a company called Lifespring Hospitals in Hyderabad, in southern India, who were really looking at, actually there was, again, a similar dichotomous private sector hospital provision, and which are exceptional, the Apollo hospitals of the world, and government hospitals, which really left a lot to be desired when it came to, in this case, maternal care. And actually, I picked this example of all our examples. I'm actually just the father of a little baby girl, 7 weeks old today. So actually this, in my own mind, and I've spent some time in Hyderabad with them, felt a lot more acute when you realize the factor, the 15 times factor of greater chance of maternal death coming from in India compared to the OECD average. And so the innovation that we saw from Ananth here, the CEO, as they've grown the locations in which they have their presence, is really to figure out how to get the unit cost to work, how to lower the technology costs in terms of the medical equipment that they use, the amount of services they offer, increase the amount of volume of operations that or deliveries and C-section planned and emergency that they do. To have an innovation around the cost structure, to have what we call the cross-subsidy model, where some higher quality rooms, for example, air-conditioned, may cross-subsidize rooms that have more beds in them, maybe without air-conditioned, that allow you to have this ability to have a much lower delivery cost. And really, that's the innovation that we look for, the entrepreneur, but not just the entrepreneur. We released a series of 10 lessons that we learned last year in our 10 years of investing. And one of them was great people every time, no exceptions. And when you take that entrepreneur to then really back, what is their business model? How do we get it to work? And really look for that breakthrough idea. Because as this now works, as the cash flow generates, as the surplus becomes positive, as it can really grow from 12 hospitals to actually go on to transform the landscape of maternal care in India and possibly even beyond. So I hope that's a helpful illustrative example, and I look forward to answering some questions you may have. Thank you.